Just by looking at this character, it seems pretty apparent what he's going to be doing in any game that he might be featured in. As a dwarf hero, he's most likely going to be running around, swinging his big old axe, killing gobulins, and doing that sort of thing. So, with that in mind, it's pretty clear what kind of rig we need to be making. We're going to be making a regular human rig with arms, legs, hands, and feet, so he's able to get around, jump around, and slash the bad guys. However, it's still important to know precisely what the character is actually going to be used for in the game. For example, if he's going to be used in a cutscene and he needs to be blinking and looking around, if his tongue needs to waggle, if his mouth even needs to open, we need to be aware of all these things so that the rig is made to suit all those purposes. This is why, at this point, before you even start rigging, it's good to have a conversation with your team members or a conversation with yourself if this is just a personal project, and ask yourself or ask them what the rig should be prepared for to accomplish all the necessary tasks inside the game. So right now, very briefly, I'm going to go through all the different things we're going to be including in this rig for this particular character. So if you're following along with our character, then it'll be nice to have this kind of foresight. If you're using your own character, just consider all these different options yourself. So starting at the very top, we're going to start with his little tuft of hair here, his mohawk. And this is something I may do, or you may want to do if you need that extra secondary motion, but it's to include a bone up here so that if you would like to, either driven through physics in the game or by keyframes by yourself, by hand, you can have this extra movement up here. So that's something we'll consider. So next up we have the character's face, and a lot of times what you'd want to do is have rigging in here for facial expression, but that's not going to be totally necessary for this particular character. So what we are going to do is some basic eyelid movement and eyeball controls. So he'll be able to look around and he'll be able to blink. Once we've gone over that process, I think it'll be easy to imagine how you might be able to implement a similar system for full-on facial movement and control. And moving right on down to his mouth, we're going to allow for the potential of some battle cries and stuff. So we want him to be able to open his jaw at least so he can be seen yelling or screaming or giving some nice compliments. And that'll be a nice little detail there. So right down below his mouth is his sweet beard, and we want this to move too. It's not totally necessary for a character like this when his beard is kind of extending down below his chest there, because it can easily be treated like clothing where it's stuck to his skin. But for this character, when he jumps or when he moves around, we're going to want some cool fluid flowing movement. So we're going to have a special element of the rig there to control his beard movement. So moving on, we have his shoulder pad here next, his pauldron. He's got off to one side, and we'll want to make sure we have a special joint there to control that movement. If you can imagine him raising his arms up, maybe to do a slash, his arms may intersect with this geometry, so we'll want to be able to move it around and move it out of the way whenever stuff like that happens. And right now he's being kind of fashionable. He's just got one on one arm, but there is potential for equipment where he might have the same sort of armor on his other shoulder at the same time. So we'll be mirroring that to have shoulder pad movement on either side. The next special feature we're going to include in this rig is the ability to move each finger on his hand individually with controllers. And that's just so in games and when we're animating, we're able to have him perform actions like grabbing weapons or grabbing characters, and it can all still look very realistic. In a similar way, we're also going to be controlling the feet with a rigging technique called an inverse foot roll. And what that does is allow the animator an easy way to roll the foot along a surface as he walks so that it looks realistic. And with that, I'd say we're looking pretty good now. Our scene is free of anything that might cause unnecessary hassle later on, and now that we have a plan for the rig itself, we're ready to start building it in the following modules.